My name is Håkon Gyran. I'm an urban planning student at the Norwegian University of Life Sciences. But right now I'm in Copenhagen, here at Copenhagen University, doing an exchange more focused on landscape architecture and urban design. And I think urban planning is so important because it affects everyone and the whole world, how we use the world, how we use the nature, where we're built, where not to build. So I think the next generation urban planners will have a very important role, how to steer the spatial development in a new direction where we actually care about the borders, where we're built, not to build, to both make sustainable cities and also take care of the outside of the cities, the nature, and make that develop in a good way. Like a brief introduction, I will start with this Copenhagen model that Copenhagen is quite famous for today, where they are selling the land to property developers so they can finance their big infrastructure such as the metro, which are built from 2002 until today, and it will be built even more in the next decades. And I think that was one of the big strategies that Copenhagen started in the 1990s to make the cities more attractive. And I think that's one of the reasons that Copenhagen is so popular, both in the Northern Europe but also in the world, like this model. And then we can ask ourselves about health, infrastructure, and the social system. And then we can ask ourselves the question about the welfare state, because Denmark is one of the countries in the world that pays the most of taxes. It means that they have a very good social and health system that of course enhances the qualities, and they also have a lot of money to use on such great initiatives such as parks and metro. Yes, definitely. But go back to the last question about this Copenhagen model, where the Copenhagen sells their own land to finance important infrastructure. I will say that in this process, the municipality or the overall society loses a lot of control over their own public spaces. So then you can ask yourselves, what's a public space? What kind of people are welcome there? What kind of activities are welcome? And you can see, for example, both in Sydhavn and Nordhavn, one of the new transformed areas from industry until new housing. It's one of the most non-affordable housing in Denmark, and it's also big signs where it says it's not allowed to play music, it's not allowed to play football. So then you can ask, is this really a public space? But on the other hand, Copenhagen has so many great initiatives also all over the city. For example, in the Bispebjerg and the Nørrebro, they have very nice and community finding urban spaces that connect cultures, people, all kinds of activities. Where I think people feel more welcome there, and I think those places are more like the definition of a public space. So I think Copenhagen has maybe kind of two faces when it comes to public spaces. They have overall a very nice public accessibility to the green spaces and the waterfront, that is super nice, but at the same time they have this maybe problematization of the democratic aspects of what an urban space is. To create attractive and livable cities for everyone, we have to actually start thinking about how we use our urban spaces, and especially the streets that were often seen as shopping streets. That's very attractive, of course, for both the economic aspects of a city, but also people often go for shopping, whether visiting a city, if it's London or Rome or Naples or whatever. So I think if you have a street and thinking how much space you have in the street, to like make it open more for everyone. You can, for example, see in a small town in Denmark called Køge, they have like I think so many streets that are transformed from like transportation activities to seating facilities. And that is quite wonderful to see, because then people are welcome to get out on the streets, sitting down and do non-commercial activities. That's one strategy, and I think also just by creating the connection between the buildings and the streets or the urban spaces are also important. So I think how we design our buildings, and especially the first floor, and also the materials we use, and also the connection to the street is quite crucial to like make this connection between the people, the architecture, and also the urban spaces and streets. I think that's also crucial. I will say absolutely everything, because when you're building something, it's affecting everyone, everything, all species, all people that are visiting the cities. So I think the way we engage people and also think about the local qualities and the identity of the people living there is super important when dealing with urban planning. Because when you like build a building, it will last for maybe 50 to 100 years, because we are like sensing the same when we're walking in cities. Like, can see this old architecture, we can see these silly streets where we ask question, why is this street formed like this? This is like the history. It's about culture, the values they had on that time. So I think today we're like building new neighborhoods, developing new cities and districts. I think we have a way to go to listen to people and get also people engaged to the processes, because I think mostly people feel that things are just happening. They have like nothing to say, or maybe they can say something, but the plan will still go through. So it's this balance between the urban planners, the politicians, but also the people that are living there. And I think if you go around in a city, I think it can be Copenhagen, if you use that as an example, you can see, for example, in the Nørrebro district, you can see a lot of art and signs in the streets about gentrification, about save our homes, we don't need any new apartments here. And that's quite fascinating to see that people are engaged. But at the same time, I think that these people maybe are not so aware of how the system works, because the system is quite fixed and complicated in a way with all these planning laws. And that's, I think, the same in whole European planning system. So I think urban planners and the whole political system has to be more focused on how can we open up our planning system to make them more transparent to the people, but also do a lot more initiatives in the local neighborhoods. And I think Copenhagen is quite good at this, because I walked a lot around here in the city and I've seen a lot of signs about what will happen here. What can you imagine your dream neighborhood in 20 years? And that's super nice that people are engaged in the process, and I've never seen that before in any European city. Cities has always, like historically, been a crossing point between everything. I think you can find everything in the cities. So I think people are just attracted to the way cities work, and they can find everything there, from like parks, libraries, universities, and of course they have many work opportunities as well. But I think we also can see a generation change comparison to our parents, for example, because the cities has been so much more livable during the last 40 years, and of course due to many new way of thinking urban planning for like this more city for high speed and a lot of traffic. Now they're changing into more livable cities. So I can see a very big change from our generation, because many of my friends and my students as well, they like want to maybe live in a city their whole life. But I mean, for our parents' generation, they wanted to go outside the cities, because the cities were often you imagine a city full of noises and traffic jam and congestion and everything. So I think the way that urban planning has started to transform cities more livable and greener, I think that's a crucial point because people now find cities more livable. Big problem for the next years will be how can everyone afford to live in a city, because we're using so much effort to make the cities better, but who are actually welcome to the city and their great qualities. So I think we need to do something with this housing aspect in the cities and to make the cities, and so everyone is welcome into the great qualities that a city has. I think we need to look more for the social aspects. First of all, social aspects of sustainability, but also the social aspect of who are welcome into the cities. Because we have a problem with gentrification, and I think we don't have a good solution yet. So I think we need all of us, both ourselves, urban planners, but also the politicians, to ask ourselves who gets most out of the nice development in the cities, because cities are getting more attractive and greener and more livable. But I also feel at the same time that some people are being pushed out of the cities, and that's a problem because they have not the same access to the great cities. And at the same time, I think we also have to think about how we use the actual urban spaces in the city, who are welcome to the spaces, and to be more specific, not doing this urban sprawl, because that's not bad. That's bad for the nature and the greener spaces around. So I'm thinking more about how we use the current urban spaces, for example, the streets, because often a little group of people are using so much more space. For example, cars, they're taking so much space in the cities, and there's living so many people in that streets, influenced in a bad way from their activity in the street. And I think we have to redefine what a street is and what can a street be used for, because it's not in many cities it's not mostly for transportation anymore. It's open for so many more activities. So I think my vision is equality and equity, both like the big perspective, who can actually afford to live there, but also what kind of activities do we allow and who is allowed to use their urban spaces that already is there.